I know there's been a lot made already because of the fact that they did allow Dobbs to walk and they did trade Wicks. And yeah, bringing back Jaden Reed made a lot of sense, especially as the slot presence in this offense. But yeah, man, you're counting on Matthew Golden making that jump as far as his production goes. I think you saw on a lot of the tape last year that he has got the ability, right? He's got everything you need physically, athletically, what have you. And you certainly saw it on the touchdown play in the playoffs, right? His first touchdown in his NFL career. But it's a question of, and Jason Vrabel, the passing game coordinator, talked about this at the podium last week. It was a question last year of knowing the playbook and knowing the adjustments and being 100% on the details.
What's up, y'all? Welcome into another edition of the Phillip Jordan Podcast. I am Phillip Jordan. Check me out over at the Auburn Wire, former in-studio host, producer of College Football on 96.9 The Legend, and currently the video board operator for Dothan United Soccer in USL 2. They open up their season this upcoming Saturday, home opener, season opener against Montgomery United. And I again appreciate you taking the time out, making this show a part of your day, however you're watching or listening to the show, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, of course, wherever you get podcasts, listening to the show. I do appreciate it. The show is a little bit of a reset from the old show. Continue on with some great guests and have a fantastic guest for you guys on the show today. I'm very excited about this. Aaron Nagler covers the Packers, co-founder of Cheesehead TV. You can check them out. Multiple shows they do. There's the Carry the G Radio, the podcast he does once a week. Also, you have Packers Transplants. You have Packers Daily. A lot of content from Aaron Nagler covering one of the more popular franchises, not just in football, just in sports in this country. And the Packers really have a worldwide fan base. And we get into a lot of stuff. I actually will get into how Cheesehead TV started. I'm very kind of nerdy and interested in that. So we'll get into that. But we'll also just kind of talk about what it's like covering the Packers. The whole quarterback deal there. You went from Favre, Rodgers to Jordan Love. We talk about that. We get into the current Packers and kind of what he's thinking about what this team could be this fall. Look, we know we're mid-May. We got training camps. We've got preseason ball. We've got all kinds of stuff between now and when the regular season starts. The schedule is coming out. So on Thursday night, the whole thing's supposed to come out. By the time you listen to this, most of the big games are out. Some interesting matchups. The Packers are going to be playing on Thanksgiving Eve against the Rams. That's new for this year, Wednesday night, Thanksgiving, the day before we get football. So we will jump into a bunch of different things. And I want to close out the show, too, talking about Lane Kiffin. What he has said about Ole Miss this week. It's been all over the news, and I want to give my thoughts on that. Anyways, here is today's featured guest interview with Aaron Nagler of Cheesehead TV. All right, everybody, joining me on this episode of the podcast. I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm joined by Aaron Nagler, co-founder of Cheesehead TV. Check them out, all the shows. Packers Daily, Packers Transplants, all the good stuff. We're putting out all the great Packers content all year long. And Aaron, I appreciate you coming on. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
I really appreciate you reaching out, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. I try to pose myself as an unbiased podcaster journalist, but if anybody's watching this video, they can see at the top. There's actually 4 Packer helmets sitting behind.
There you go.
So I've never hid my my fan and my love of the Green Bay Packers. So that's one thing I haven't done. And I've been looking forward to this. And again, appreciate you coming on. And I just kind of want to jump into it because I'm kind of a nerd on just the content business too, like how people got started and how it got going, and the differences from when it started to now. And you guys over there, you and of course co-founder Corey over there at Cheesehead TV, how'd y'all get the whole thing started?
I mean, it is a bit of a long story, but I'll give you the truncated version. Corey and I met at school at North Carolina School of the Arts. We were both actors, And when we first met, this is true, and he'll tell you the same thing. I hated him. We did not hit it off at all. And, the thing that kind of brought us together was the Packers. We would, you're in North Carolina, and this is the late 90s, it was way before we were all streaming everything. So, I would go to sports bars to watch the game. And then, the Packers were pretty good and they were on national television a lot. So we would end up kind of in the same group watching those games together. And then, yeah, we became pretty close friends there by the end. He left for New York. I joined late, 2 years later. And then living here in New York, it's so funny. You move to New York with people and you think, oh, we're going to see each other all the time, but we never did. But we talked on the phone pretty much every week, and all we did was argue about the Packers. I mean, I'm talking like an hour and a half conversations, and all you'd hear is me or him. One of us would be yelling about something. Lots of times it would be about Brett Favre, but just stridently arguing our case or whatever. And then at that time, there wasn't a whole ton of stuff online about the Packers. I mean, I think at that point, the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel and the Green Bay Press Gazette were kind of just replicating whatever they had in the paper that day. And then Cliff Crystal was doing a post-game chat every week. That's about the most original content they had. And I thought it was brilliant. To this day, I still think it's some of the greatest Packers content ever put on the internet. And he retired the year after I moved to New York. And I, in my hubris, thought, well, someone needs to take up the mantle here, obviously. So I started a blog that no one read except for Corey and my dad, essentially. But Corey kind of got intrigued by the idea that I was writing. And he said he had it all figured out. He was like, we should start our own website. We're going to call it Cheesehead TV. Most importantly, though, he said we should do a podcast. And this was in late 2006, going into 2007, when no one was doing podcasts. So I said, what's a podcast? And, he was like, oh, it's kind of like radio on the internet, whatever. So we did. We just started doing it. And it just, I think, was right time, right place, because we very much hit a good vein of, fandom that had been, I want to say underserved, but certainly was kind of just existing without a whole lot of attention being paid to it. We instantly found an audience in a big way with service members across the world, like people who we heard almost instantly from people stationed all throughout, like Europe, Korea, Japan. It was crazy how quickly people seemingly found this thing. And this was 2007. Twitter starts in 2008. We were early adopters of Twitter. It's just a lot of right place, right time. And we were producing daily content. I was writing every day. And then we started to find other writers. And it just grew. It grew to the point where Bleacher Report approached me about joining them. And I joined Bleacher Report to help with their NFL video kind of content creation there. Then I joined Sports Illustrated, and then I covered the Packers. I worked for the Green Bay Press Gazette and, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel under Gannett. And while I was doing that, Corey had been kind of building a live streaming empire, essentially running his own business called LiveX. And I, was on the beat for a number of years. And while I was doing that, I couldn't do any Cheesehead TV content. The contract stated I had to be exclusive. Up until then, I kind of lived in both worlds. I was doing the kind of pro, make a living, pay my rent stuff, but I could also do Cheesehead TV. But while I was on the beat, I wasn't allowed to do it. And Corey and I essentially came to a spot where I really missed doing Cheesehead TV. He really missed having me to kind of bounce conversations off of, because we really had gotten used to it at that point. And, I was very sick of having to make content for other people. And what I really loved is the idea of coming back and doing Cheesehead TV, essentially, hopefully full time, and to kind of make it my career, right? And we were well on our way to making that happen until the pandemic hit. And I had, come back under the guise of I would help with LiveX, his streaming company, and help with marketing and things like that, which I did. And the pandemic came at a really weird time because, like I said, we were kind of just finally dedicated to, okay, we're going to make this a business, right? And because of the pandemic and everyone being shut in and everybody on the internet, we just kind of leaned into our watch parties and happy hours and the community aspect of it. And again, I kind of like right place, right time in that regard. It really, I think, connected with a lot of Packers fans. And so that really kind of was a springboard coming out of the pandemic to, okay, we had laid the groundwork, and then we kind of made the leap, so to speak, where, yeah, Cheesehead TV became my job. And
Mhm.
that was, I want to say, coming in like 2021. And since then, that's what I've been doing. That's how I've been paying my bills. And here I am.
And I know it's something I see in the description on the podcast version of Packers Daily, and you say it, Packers fans worldwide, because it is a worldwide fan base. It's,
Yes,
I
sir.
put it up there. When you look at NFL, like the Packers, the Cowboys, the Steelers, Chiefs lately, but those three,
Mhm.
maybe the 49ers, and they're just the historic franchises. They're worldwide. I mean, look, I'm a guy in Alabama, and I became a Packer fan in the late '90s because of Favre, and then it
Sure.
continued with Rodgers. And I have dated myself. I've run into people I became friends with, and I say, "Why are you a Packer fan?" I said, "Aaron Rodgers." I'm like, "Okay, I've gotten a little bit old.
I'm a
Gotten a little bit
little
older
older, right?
because mine is as far as." And then and that's the cool thing I think about this franchise. Like, it just touches so many parts of the globe with football fans.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. Like I said, we've heard not just then, but when the Packers played in London, we had a meetup, and I was expecting a decent turnout, but Corey and I both were absolutely floored. We had hundreds of people show up to this little pub in in London, and they were very taken aback by how many people were there, as were we. And that was probably one of my favorite moments of just existing with Cheesehead TV, because we heard so many stories from all over the world, South America, India, Russia, the Ukraine, like legit people who connect through us to the Green Bay Packers. Like, it's just wild to me. But that trip really kind of hammered that home, how international and worldwide the fan base really is.
And and one thing too, I mean, with the Packers, and I think a lot of people don't ever feel bad for the Packers when bad things happen because the quarterback situation in
Yep.
Green Bay. And
Yep.
as long as you've been covering as a fan, and then with Cheesehead TV, Favre, Rodgers, and now Jordan Love, and it's just like the Packers, you don't know what it's like to go through. The other teams that are searching for quarterbacks for 20, 30 years. The
Absolutely.
Packers have had elite quarterback play that whole entire time. Just what does that also say about this franchise, that there's you can compare to three, but there's not been a major drop off at that position.
No, absolutely. And I think part of that is because of the fact that they don't have an owner, and it allows those
Mhm.
general managers to make big swings for a quarterback, whether it was Ted and drafting Aaron, even though they had been in the NFC Championship game and felt like they were just on the cusp, or if it's Brian, hopping up there in the first round to draft Jordan, even though Rodgers is there and they're on the cusp, etc. And I understand why there are some fans who maybe balk at that and get frustrated by it. But I'll also point out what you just talked about as far as, oh, yeah, lots of fans now have only known that quarterback stability, right? They've
Mhm.
only known Brett, Aaron, and now Jordan. Let me tell you, as a 52-year-old man who's been walking this earth with some terrible quarterback play in Green Bay, I can tell you, man, there's a reason there are, folks that are labeled as entitled town, because, man, I sat through Randy Wright. I sat through Whitehurst, and I sat through Zorn, and I sat through a lot of bad quarterback play in Green Bay growing up, right? So we were part of that wilderness. You talk about teams looking for a quarterback for 20 plus years. Green Bay was that team. After Bart
Mhm.
Starr was gone, it was a wilderness for a long time. So the fact that the Packers have leaned into the idea of, we're always going to make sure that we've got a franchise guy. Now, you can talk about Jordan and whatever his ceiling might be, and I think he has still a long way to go. I think he's got still a lot of untapped potential, but certainly he's the guy, right? They have found the guy they want to build around and hopefully go win another championship with. I much prefer this approach, the ability to have the most important position on the field sorted for a decade plus at a time. Give me that. I much prefer that than the kind of slinging things every offseason, hoping you might find something.
Yeah, the Cleveland Browns, they've been looking for one, which they had one in the building, but they got rid
They
of
let
him,
him
Baker
go, right?
Mayfield. And then the
Yep.
Dolphins, I mean, they've been trying to replace Dan Marino for what, 30 years now.
Forever,
Yeah, so
forever. And I think Malik's got a good shot to be the
mhm.
long-term answer there. I really do.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about him, but first, back on Jordan Love.
Mhm.
You talking about him, and I think a lot of people, obviously, when you follow Aaron Rodgers, you're going to comparison. Honestly, I watch him. I see more Favre than I do Aaron Rodgers sometimes. He's got a little bit
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers with his footwork, but there's that gunslinger mentality, which I'm actually not 1% against, because I like a quarterback's going to take some chances, because a lot of times with guys like Jordan Love, he's going to get the ball there. From his first year starter, now going into now the fourth year, what's been the biggest thing you've seen in his development?
He has calmed himself down a little bit in the ways you're talking about. I do remember that first kind of 6-7 game flush, right, of his first year as a starter. And I think people remember there were people making lists like who they might have to draft at the top of the draft because they're going to have a top 10 pick because it looks so bad, etc. But man, we all know that second half of that year into that playoff game in Dallas, I mean, he really showed what he can do. Really, really stinks that he got hurt that first game the next season, right? Because I do think the perception was, oh, he didn't deliver on that promise. Maybe he took a step back. I think last year showed us how good he still is and can be. And like I said, I still think he's growing. I still think, he's entering the prime of his career. There's zero doubt about that. But it was funny. We had an exercise last offseason during happy hour at Cheesehead TV where we watched some old games, some old Packers games of Brett Favre's heading into the same kind of year as a starter, right? And you saw some of the same things, real confidence in that arm. I can make any throw no matter what the coverage is. And yeah, you've seen a lot of that with Jordan, right? I love it. I think it's kind of his superpower. I don't ever want to take it away. I understand fans have maybe been desensitized to the idea of, oh, yeah, your guy can throw interceptions too because of Aaron. And he was so risk averse in a great way, right? But I do, to your point, I love watching him sling it. I love the way he takes chances and trusts his guys. And it's not, wild. I don't think it's something where he's like, screw it, home, so-and-so's down there kind of thing. I think he takes calculated risks, which I'm totally fine with, because it does produce some pretty special results game in and game out. And I think it is funny to watch people kind of cling to their priors as far as, yes, certainly that first year, he made some really boneheaded throws, right? Even his second year as a starter, there was some really questionable decisions, let's say. But I think you look last year, yeah, you can look at the interception in Cleveland, first drive against the Bengals. There's certainly throws he'd probably want back. But overall, the body of work in its totality last season, that's exemplary quarterback play. And again, he's just starting out. I think these next 4 or 5 years, he's going to be at the height of his powers, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and I agree. Because kind of what happened in the last year, the 5-game losing streak, and then of course, when Michael Parsons went down is when all that went down. But that was one thing I thought was being held together. I mean, I think that's one thing we actually kind of people are going to overlook, because they lost against the Bears in the wild card round. I hate saying that word's coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But he threw for over 300 yards. I mean, the Packers were in a position to win that game because of the game that Jordan Love had. He was having a phenomenal game. He had a better game than Caleb Williams in that game, but Caleb Williams just had the wild throws at the end that the Bears put
and it helps when your receivers help you out as a quarterback, right? I mean, he in that final drive, he hits Matthew Golden on a 4th and 7 to essentially keep the season alive, right? And then hits Jaden Reed in the hands, and it's dropped, and then should have had a game-winning touchdown on the throw to Christian Watson over the middle there, but Watson lets up for whatever reason. It's like Jordan did his job. And to your point, yeah, he was outstanding that 5-game stretch. And what's funny is that everyone talks about Micah missing those last 5 games for obvious reasons, right? Huge star, was having a monster year, gets hurt. Packers defense is nowhere near the same. But all of that overshadows the fact that Zach Tom went down in that exact same game. Like everyone talks about, oh, they lost the last 5 after Micah went down. No, yeah, they lost Micah. They lost their best offensive lineman too, like for that end stretch. So Jordan's still producing at that high of a level with a makeshift offensive line. Again, that only speaks to how good he is and how well he played and is probably going to continue to play here the next, hopefully 10 plus years.
Yeah, and then I'll add in the fact is he had a banged up Josh Jacobs all last year too at the running back position. So he was gutting it out. I mean, in some of them games, but you can obviously tell he wasn't the guy he was year before. He
was banged up, no doubt.
Kind of interesting too, because they bring in, and I'm probably gonna mispronounce the guy's first name, and I'll apologize. Tyrod Taylor.
Tyrod. if you please. Tyrod
Yeah.
Taylor. Trust
knew-
me, when the news broke and I made a video and I called it Tyrod, but it's Tyrod.
All right,
So-
Tyrod Taylor.
so
They can
we're all on
come
the
after
same
me
page.
now. They can come after me now on
Yeah, I'll
messing
tell
it
them,
up.
tell them it's your fault. Yeah, exactly.
But he had Malik Willis as his backup last few years, and now he's got a guy that's been in the league longer than him. That's a lot of experience, and I see that as a positive. Even if Taylor never has to step on the field, just the knowledge and the help that he can. I think a lot of people don't realize that what the backup quarter, not just in case the quarterback gets hurt, is that he's there to assist and help prepare the quarterback, start quarterback. How do you see him benefiting Jordan Love this year?
Yeah, I think that's a really underrated aspect of the signing, and I think that's an astute observation. I think when he was first starting as a starter, you saw the Packers continue to kind of churn through developmental types, right? Which makes sense. But now that Jordan's entering, like I said, his prime of his career, this is the window, right? These are the championship windows. And you do want two things. You want a guy who, yes, can come in, hopefully get you through a stretch if Jordan does, heaven forbid, get banged up and get you not only out of a game, but hopefully if it is, a couple games that Jordan's got to be on the sideline, you can still run your offense for the most part and get through a stretch, right? And I think Tyrod gives him that. But I also think, to your point, it gives him another set of really experienced eyes that not only, Monday through Saturday while you're talking about it in the quarterback room or on the practice field, but on game day specifically where, sure, Getsy's there, no question about it. And I know LaFleur goes over to Love after every drive, essentially. But then he's going to be sitting next to a guy who, to your point, has a boatload of NFL experience and will undoubtedly be watching that film or the stills in the surface together, right? And look at whoever might be like this backside corner keeps doing this. You should maybe look that way for XYZ type route with whatever receiver can take advantage of it. Like those are the kind of minuscule things that maybe don't kind of pay humongous dividends until they do, right? Until they hit a big play because of it or because they're able to set something up because of it. I think it's a really smart signing from that regard, and I think it can only help both the team, but certainly Jordan's continued development as a starter.
Yeah, and I feel like he's the kind of quarterback too. Like if Jordan Love does go down, there's not a drop off. It's kind of plays kind of similar.
Well, you don't have to change your offense.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? You don't have to downshift into like, West Coast 101 or something. You can still run most of your stuff.
And they were able to do that last season with Malik Willis. The first year with Malik, I felt like the offense was altered a little bit. Which, he joined the team 2 weeks before the regular season. The fact that he was as successful he was in those games he played for Jordan Love was a testament to Matt LaFleur and the coaching staff. But then last year, he comes in against the Giants and makes that touchdown throw, and then he played well. I know losses against the Ravens, against the Bears. I mean, they didn't lose those games because of Malik Willis. And now what's kind of like you're feeling, you kind of alluded to a little bit a few minutes ago about what he's going to be able to do in Miami now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see the leeway he's given because look, they've kind of, stripped that thing down to the nub as far as the talent. And I mean, I give John Eric Sullivan, their new general manager who came from Green Bay, a lot of credit for being honest because he was asked at the owners meetings about, trading Waddle. And he said, look, he's a really talented player, obviously, but he's, entering his second contract era and he's going to want probably a new deal by the time he hits like 28, 29. We're just getting this thing started in Miami as far as their program goes. And, Malik is coming in there. It's the one guy they probably have no questions about. They've been with him for 2 years, both the GM and the head coach. I think it's going to be probably rough at times simply because of the talent disparity, but I think Malik can do whatever you want him to do in the NFL as far as run your offense and both, make every single throw. He's got power in that throw for days, but also we've seen how dangerous he can be with his legs. I think that is going to help him both on design runs, but certainly if and when things start to break down, being able to create outside the pocket. He's a thrower first. He keeps his eyes downfield. He wants to make that throw, but if it doesn't materialize, he has no problem using his legs and getting you a first down and keeping the offense on track. And that's for a young kind of program just starting out. That's invaluable. That's an eraser almost for what will inevitably be issues, wrong routes, whatever, bad protection. Like he can erase a lot of that just with his athletic ability.
Yeah, and look, and I'll be honest, in my time writing about Auburn stuff, Malik Willis was an Auburn Tiger at one point, got stuck behind Jarrett Stidham, and then Bo Nix was coming to town, so
Can you imagine?
he leaves and goes to Liberty, and
Liberty, baby. I didn't
yeah.
watch. I got to admit, I did not watch a whole lot of Liberty tape. That's true. I didn't know
Well,
a whole
what's
lot
funny,
about it.
his head coach at Liberty ended up coming to Auburn, which that was a complete failure for 3 years, and now Auburn's got a new head football coach. But
There you go.
still, there was when I was watching Malik Willis play for Green Bay, I was kind of okay, I seen this out of him, but potential, but just couldn't do it because the guy, two Denver Bronco quarterbacks, were
That's
front
crazy.
That's
Hilarious.
of them there at Auburn. Running back, I alluded to Josh Jacobs.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you hope to have him full health, get a healthy Josh Jacobs. You know what that player's capable of when he is there. Any concern, though, from the depth point for running back for Green Bay if he happens to get banged up again?
I mean, a little bit, simply because they don't have a ton of experience back there, or top flight experience, as it were. Obviously, Marshawn Lloyd is the lottery ticket that you can't count on. I loved Ben Searman's point blank, the running back coach, point blank saying, yeah, I'm confident, but I've been confident before. There's no way you can go into the season thinking, yeah, we can lean on Marshawn Lloyd as our kind of change of pace back, or any kind of like real rotational aspect on offense. So then you look at Chris Brooks, who capable. I think he can certainly get you yardage when you need it on the ground, can work out of the backfield as a option in the passing game, but he's really there for his pass protection, right? We all know that that's his bread and butter. That's what he's excellent at. So yeah, you look down, there's a couple options there on the practice squad, but I gotta think they're going to continue to look around the league, scour the waiver wire. We've seen them make a couple waiver moves here in the last couple of days. They're going to continue to look and possibly bring people in at that position, I would think, throughout the summer, but certainly during training camp. It's something they've done pretty much every year, every summer that Brian's been there. They're going to keep kind of churning the bottom of the depth chart. I do not doubt for a moment they're going to continue to look at that position. But with that said, and I know this is bordering on fantasy football talk, but that is the most fungible position in the NFL. Like, you don't need a top flight guy to be effective in the running game, as far as you got to block it up front. And that's the Packers struggled there last year without question. And that, I think played way more into their issues than, Josh Jacobs being banged up or whatever lack of talent they may have had at back. They can survive there if they, need to go out and maybe make a trade or pick some up off the waiver wire. It's an offense too that is so kind of widely utilized now. It's talking about, like, the McVay, Shanahan, now LaFleur kind of tree, as it were, scheme wise, that a lot of backs at this point have some kind of experience in this scheme. So you can hopefully be able to plug and play a guy that maybe you got off waivers last week and has to come in and give you some, serious rotational reps that following week. I don't think that's, the way they would like to go, but it doesn't concern me nearly as much as it would maybe other positions, like, say, left tackle or something like that.
In a wide receiver, obviously not the crowded room that it once was. When Tavian Wicks now traded off to the Eagles, and Romeo Dobbs to the Patriots, which I liked what he got asked, that he was asked about.
That was very nice. Yeah.
Would it be a revenge thing? And he was very complimentary of the Packers. And you wish kind of sometimes more guys were that way, but anyways, that's how it is sometimes. Jaden Green, and you got Savion Williams, Christian Watkins, obviously, Reed and Watkins, most experienced guys in this offense. It feels like this is Matthew Golden, if he's going to prove to be that first round pick. He's going to get the opportunity to do so now.
You would hope. And I know there's been a lot made already because of the fact that they did allow Dobbs to walk and they did trade Wicks. And yeah, bringing back Jaden Reed made a lot of sense, especially as the slot presence in this offense. But yeah, man, you're counting on Matthew Golden making that jump as far as his production goes. I think you saw on a lot of the tape last year that he has got the ability, right? He's got everything you need physically, athletically, what have you. And you certainly saw it on the touchdown play in the playoffs, right? His first touchdown in his NFL career. But it's a question of, and Jason Vrabel, the passing game coordinator, talked about this at the podium last week. It was a question last year of knowing the playbook and knowing the adjustments and being 100% on the details, which he struggled with out of the gate. And it's so funny because somewhat kind of remind people of, where he was on that big play in Dallas. There's a play early in the game where he catches a big, like 40-yarder up the left sideline where he's clearly not where he's supposed to be. Like he almost steals it from Dontavian Wicks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's the kind of thing where if you put that on tape, well, coaches are not going to trust you. They're not
Mm-hmm.
going to throw you in there and give you a ton of opportunities. Now, he was on the field a lot last year, running a lot of clear out routes, doing stuff away from the action. There were times where it felt like maybe Jordan didn't trust him to be kind of like the primary read. I think this is the year where, yeah, you've got to get this kid involved, no matter what maybe is happening in practice and maybe whatever you're talking about as far as adjustment, but maybe got to streamline some things for him. But he's way too talented to be ignored again. There's zero doubt in my mind that, especially with Christian Watson on the other side, I mean, if you're a defensive coordinator, you're having some hot flashes about how am I going to deal with the speed here, all the explosive ability at wide receiver in this offense. I think there's going to be weeks. It depends on who they face and what type of defense they're going against. But I think there are going to be weeks where Golden just absolutely eats against some cornerback twos in the NFL.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people look at Green Bay and say, well, they don't have a number one receiver. Well, if he's healthy, they have Tucker Kraft.
Man, that's your guy, no doubt.
And to me, and we talked about Michael Parsons earlier when he had the injury. Will was even, before that when Tucker Kraft went down against the Panthers. And I felt like that really took a chance away from Green Bay to really be that Super Bowl team, because the way Kraft was playing last season before the injury, I don't think there's anybody in the league that was able to stop him.
Oh, he was on an all-pro track. He would have, if he just plays the rest of the year the way he had up till that point, he's an all-pro, no doubt, no question in my mind.
Yeah, so getting him back fully healthy is going to be big for them. Defense, real quick. Jonathan Gannon coming in. I had to watch myself. For some reason, I'm showing my my fandom too. I almost said Rich Gannon for some reason, but it's Jonathan Gannon.
That would be unorthodox. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I hear Gannon. I think Rich Gannon. I'm showing my age.
Right
I may not look to be late 30s, but I am. Oh. Obviously, he got questions. Michael Parsons, which he's going to be out, several weeks for the season. You don't expect him week 1 for the Packers.
Right.
Who do you see stepping up? You got Lucas Van Ness. You got Cooper. You got some guys on this team, and it felt like when he went down last year, they kind of struggled getting after the quarterback compared when he was on the field. Just who do you see on this team going to need to step up in the absence of Michael Parsons before he's able to get back on the field?
It's so obviously Lucas Van Ness, right? Yeah. And it's really frustrating as a Packers fan because we've been waiting for this promise, right? We've been waiting for him to deliver on that promise for 4 years now, And look, he was playing well last year before he got hurt. Well, in fact, he got hurt on his first sack of the season, which stinks, right? You finally get home to the quarterback, and now you're on the shelf for weeks. And then he tried to come back. I think he lasted like 6 plays and then got on the shelf again. But yeah, they're going to need him to step up in a big way. And I do think, there's no doubt that the addition of, Hargrave in the middle helps you overall. He's got some juice left as far as being a pass rusher. I mean, I understand he's getting long in the tooth, been in the league for a long time, but he can still rush the passer when asked to, right? And then getting Devontae Wyatt back, I think, is a monster kind of development for whoever is out there at edge, whether it is Lucas Van Ness, whether it's Baron Sorrell. These guys that they are certainly going to be counting on. They got Denai Dennis Sutton in the draft, who's undoubtedly going to get some opportunities here, but I don't think they're going to lean on him heavily. But yeah, man, as far as like the headliner, it's Lucas Van Ness. It has to be. He has to, A, stay on the field, and B, just be more consistent, because you've seen flashes. There are some really good reps on the tape from last season. Problem is they're too few and far between. They have to be more consistent. He has to be more consistent. And I don't need him to come in and be an all-pro, but he certainly needs to be productive, and he needs to be consistent. And if he can do that, they should be cooking.
If he starts the season off well, too, and then when Michael Parsons is back in the lineup, he's going to garner so much attention. That's going to open up even more success for him and other guys, of course, on that defense.
Yeah, I mean, Devontae Wyatt really, really ate early in the season. When they were really kind of cooking, and he was getting a lot of one-on-ones along the interior because you're slide into Parsons or you're dedicating a back to Parsons. And now all of a sudden, Devontae Wyatt's there against some unathletic guard and just swimming it and getting to the QB. So, there's zero doubt in my mind that to me, the interior pressure and the work inside is going to benefit whoever they have to lean on outside while Parsons is down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got 2 more questions for you. Kept you over 30 minutes now. I appreciate you being gracious with your time. I wasn't planning on this when I asked you on the show last week, but kicker, McManus is now out, and now they drafted. They got Trace Mack coming from Florida. Last time they had a rookie kicker, again, Auburn connection. Anders Carlson was one of them in the past. That it seems it's a big risk. I mean, I know McManus struggled against the Bears. He had his moment, and he had some injury stuff last too as well.
He did.
How big of a risk do you think is it? Because special teams has been the bugaboo for this Packers team for I'll just say, even as long as I've been a fan of the team, it seems like special teams is just not been a spot. They just have not been able to get right.
Yeah, I think they cursed themselves when they allowed Micah Hyde to walk out the door without even offering him a contract. I mean, he's literally still tied for the all-time franchise lead with 3 punt returns for touchdowns with Desmond Howard and Will Blackman, right? So from that moment on, it has been a disaster on special teams for the most part. Now, they did kind of stumble into Keyshawn Nixon being an all-pro returner, and then the rules changed and that all went away. But, so it hasn't been complete desert, but it has not been good, right? So I understand how anybody might be looking at this with some kind of trepidation. But, man, because they've been so bad on teams, I'm literally to the point where I don't is worrying about it going to help? No, they've made this choice. They're going to go with the rookie. He's either going to make his kicks or he's not. And if he doesn't, then we'll be looking for a new kicker, which we've been doing now for years, right? So that's kind of just keeping on. But potentially, he could be the answer. It all comes down to him making his kicks. If he makes his kicks, great. If he doesn't, oh well, now we got to keep looking. But it's not like Brandon McManus was some amazingly consistent lock that, oh boy, how could we possibly let him go? Especially when you miss 3 kicks in a playoff game, where if you make those kicks, you win the game. So I suspect, I haven't seen any reporting around this, but I suspect once that selection got made, and I know, Gutekunst point blank said after the draft, there's going to be a competition in training camp, right? Well, then the release happens. I got to think that Brandon McManus went to the team and said, look, it's clear that you want this kid to be the kicker. Just give me my release so I can go at least be on the street when someone else needs a kicker. When I will probably hear one of these guys asked about it here in the upcoming weeks, but I got to suspect that was the case. And if you're the Packers, you made this selection. You clearly believe in this kid. I got no problem handing them the reins.
I'll just say this: if it don't work out with Smack, I'll watch UFL the weekend. Anders made a kick for Birmingham, so if he's still out there,
there we go. Kicking. There we go. Hey, the Lions got their kicker from the UFL. So anything can happen.
So there you go. Of course, we're sitting here. This is middle of May. We have a little bit to go till training camp, all that good stuff. But it's never too early to kind of look ahead, obviously. And then we're recording this on Wednesday evening. So by the time this comes out on Thursday, the Packers' entire schedule may be done. We may know exactly when they're playing. Yeah. Everything's getting leaked out. And it gets me, Aaron, every year they make a big deal out of the schedule release show. And then everything is almost there for us before the show is actually aired, which is good because then you don't have to actually watch it.
We can get on with our lives. Exactly.
Yes.
But, if you are so inclined, you should watch the schedule release show on Cheesehead TV tomorrow night.
That's the one. That is the one that people should be checking out.
Because you just want the Packers. You know what I mean? You watch the NFL Network. It's they're talking about every team except for the Packers the whole time. That's what it feels like. I know that's not strictly true, but why not just watch a show where all we do is talk about the Packers? That's what I want.
And that is true. And the Thanksgiving Eve game on Netflix. Now the Rams just play every day of the week. The NFL. I think that's
they're getting there. Tuesday Night Football coming soon.
That's it. Airing on. I'm trying to think. What's another streaming service they're not on?
Put it on Tubi or something.
There you go. Put it on Tubi, or bring back Crackle.
Tubi Tuesdays. It'll be Tubi Tuesdays. There you go.
There you go. That would be good branding on that one. But just kind of just thinking about this team and going into next season, knowing the teams, what the North did, and all that stuff.
Sure.
Um, where would you rank this Packer team amongst the top teams in the NFC?
Well, they're right there. They're
Yeah.
right there. There's zero reason they shouldn't be contending for a Super Bowl this year. And I know everyone's going to say that's Homer talk, and fine, label me whatever you want. But there's so much being made of the people that walked out the door, especially on the national level, right? Like looking at, okay, they lost all these snaps, they lost, quote, all this production, but it's like they've been building their team towards this moment. Like they knew they were most likely going to allow Romeo Dobbs to walk after they drafted Matthew Golden and Savion Williams. Like this is not some surprise, right? This is a team that has identified their very young core that has been growing together. And now, for the first time since they traded away Aaron Rodgers and went super young with the roster, they've supplemented it with lots of experience, whether it's Hargrave, Zaire Franklin, even Benjamin St. Juste. Like they are not the youngest team in the league anymore. They are still young, but that's the core. And this is a team that has the expectation of we are here to win the Super Bowl this season. And they have every chance. To me, they were on their way last year. They're 9-3-1 when they're in Denver and they've got the lead in the third quarter. And then Watson goes down and Parsons goes down and Zach Tom goes down and Evan Williams goes down, all in the course of like 30 minutes, right? Which completely changed their season. And even after that, if Romeo Dobbs just falls on the onside kick in Chicago, they're hosting a playoff game. They've won the division. So they were on their way until it all got kind of decimated by injury, which fine, injuries aren't an excuse. I totally get it. But that's who this team is. And I think if they get just a little bit of injury luck this year, which is never a given, but if they do, they're right there with everybody. I mean, you can rank them however you want. You can talk about the Eagles. You can talk about whoever, right? The Packers can play and beat anybody. There's zero question in my mind.
Yeah, you mentioned I didn't bring up the Bears regular season loss because I got PTSD on that one from the 2014 NFC Championship game.
Oh yeah, it's a tough
people
one.
ask me as a fan, what's the worst loss one of my teams has ever had, and I always say that game is the one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a very tough one. No,
I mean, there's been others, but that was it.
We have a whole list. Yes, as Packers fans, no doubt about it.
Yes, it's like sometimes I say I'm glutton for punishment. That's just how I feel sometimes.
We keep coming back, no doubt.
Absolutely, and there's going to be plenty of this team going on between now and the season. Schedule release on Cheesehead TV.
Yes, sir.
Everybody go check it out if you want to see who the Packers. Everybody knows who they're playing, but what the schedule is going to look like. And Aaron, there's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on, talking all things Packers and the start of Cheesehead TV, kind of the genesis of all that. But if the listeners and viewers want to check it online, where can they find you? They should be already following you, but if they're not, where can they find you?
Yeah, the most active is probably on Twitter and YouTube. Aaron Nagler, Aaron Nagler. That's straight up handle on Twitter. It's youtube.com/Cheesehead TV on YouTube. Cheeseheadtv.com is the website. And, all of the we're on everything, TikTok, Instagram, whatever you want. Cheesehead TV is there. But yeah, we never close shop. We're always Packers 365 all the time.
Everybody go check Aaron out. Aaron, I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, man.
All right. Once again, thanks to Aaron Nagler for coming on the show. I was really looking forward to that one. Been following his work for a long time. So whenever you get a chance to interview and chat with somebody that you've been following and, in this space, somebody, you look up to their opinions and how they do things, and really curious how Cheesehead TV started. And we, of course, all the Packer talk there as well. It was a lot of fun. And Packers are a very popular team. So, I think a lot of people enjoy that conversation, and I know I did, and it seemed like Aaron had a good time. Maybe down the road we'll catch up with Aaron once again. All right, so a few things before we get out of here. Kind of thinking, okay, what's some other football stuff that's going on that I could talk about here on the show? And Lane Kiffin is the gift that keeps on giving because of some stuff he said. In an interview, I think it was a 4-hour interview with Vanity Fair, and the quotes and some of the things going around with him, some things he said about Ole Miss in this interview. And according to the Vanity Fair article, it said, in explaining his decision to leave Ole Miss for LSU, Lane Kiffin seems willing to invoke Ole Miss's struggle to distance itself from symbols like the Confederate flag, the rebel, and the nickname Ole Miss itself. He said when he was coaching there, Kiffin says top recruits would tell him, "Hey, coach, we really like you, but my grandparents aren't letting me move to Oxford, Mississippi. That doesn't come up when you say Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Parents were sitting here this weekend saying the campus diversity feels so great. It feels like there's no segregation." And then there's some other quotes going around that Lane Kiffin has done before in other places. Just talking about recruiting there at Ole Miss. I guess he just felt like at some point it was going to run out. I mean, the great 6 years he had there, 55-19, 4-10 win season. Of course, the team made the college football playoff this past year and went on a run without him. Made it to the semifinals. Was very close to playing for a national championship. A bounce to here or there against Miami. They're the ones playing Indiana instead of Miami. So they came very close there. And, with Lane Kiffin, the thing about it, he didn't really need to say all this, in my opinion. Look, there was going to be people upset with him leaving Ole Miss the way he did. Left a team that made a playoff, a team that had a shot to win a championship. And to me, he still could have kind of kept some goodwill there in Oxford and with the Ole Miss fans. And it wouldn't have been as bad in week 3 when LSU travels to Ole Miss to play them. And that's going to be a primetime game. ABC is going to televise it. A lot of people is going to be paying attention to that game. I wouldn't be shocked if game day's there, to be perfectly honest with you. That'll probably depend on how LSU does against Clemson in the opener, which game day is going to be there for that one. But he didn't need to say all this. And look, he burnt the bridge at Tennessee when he left way back when after 2009 and went to USC. We saw how that happened when he did become the Ole Miss head coach and returned to Tennessee. The golf ball, the mustard being thrown at him, all that stuff. We saw that. And he signed a 7-year, $91 million contract there at LSU. We know what that's about. He believes that at LSU he can win a national championship. He could not at Ole Miss. But the thing we saw with Indiana too, that in this day and age of college football, you could win at places like Ole Miss. Indiana just won a national championship. Now, LSU has a track record of coaches winning titles. Brian Kelly did not do it there, but the 3 coaches before him all won a championship. Orgeron won one, Les Miles won one, and Nick Saban won one. And obviously in Louisiana, you were the only school there. It is a talent-rich state, plenty of players to choose from. And with Lane Kiffin, so they're going to have good offense. We'll see what year 1 looks like. I think Ole Miss will be better than them in year 1. But down the road, you could probably say, okay, LSU will be better because you just don't know with Pete Golding. How's he going to do full-time as the head coach? He did a great job as the interim in the playoff run, but how will he do moving forward now where he is the guy? Where is his program now and figuring that out? And of course, they have Trinidad Chambers coming back, which is a big part for them. So now Lane Kiffin did apologize. He apologized. He says, I really apologize if anybody at Ole Miss or Mississippi was offended by that. Kiffin told On3, I was asked about the difference in recruiting, and I said one narrative we battled there from some out-of-state Black parents and grandparents was not wanting their kid to move to Mississippi because of the past. And Ryan McGee, I watched the interview with him on Dan Patrick earlier this week, and he talked about this situation. And how, at one time it was like that at Ole Miss. And Ryan McGee went to Tennessee. He talked about the change there, but in the last 20 years, it's not really been like that. And look, and the sad thing about it, and I don't agree with it, but it's, the history of everything in the South. All these states and all these schools probably have parts of their history that they're not proud of, and some stuff, with the South. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not trying to get political and anything here on the show. We stick to the sports side of things, but there are some things there. And then you even have with LSU, the Tiger name. It kind of comes from something from the Civil War days. It's it's not just a tiger. It's also alluding to something connected to that back then. Obviously, people don't pay attention to that, don't know that. And look, they're just the Tigers. We had fun. Ed Orgeron's like, go Tigers and stuff like that. So, but I'm just saying there's a little bit of everything there. But my whole bringing it back in, Lane Kiffin didn't have to say all that. He could have just said, hey, it was a good run 6 years at Ole Miss. I've moved on to LSU. That's all he had to say. He didn't have to do this, but this is just Lane Kiffin being Lane Kiffin. It is a proof that he has not grown up as a coach. He's a 50-year-old child, and this is who he is. And he is just going to not leave places in a proper manner. And this was another example of that. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. And media days, this will get brought up again of what he said in this interview. And it'll be very interesting what happens with that. What question will be thrown his way, which I'm sure he'll give a certain political answer on that. Lane's different in front of at media days than he is on Twitter or maybe in these one-on-one interviews where he's a little less outspoken. He seems uncomfortable at times when he does those interviews and those press conferences there at SEC Media Days. Other stuff, I feel like I'm talking about this every episode now. Of course, earlier in the week, had Bill Bender on from the Sporting News, and we talked about the 2014 playoff that it seems like a lot of coaches are wanting, mainly outside the SEC, it seems. They want 2014 playoff, and where that would go and the issues with that, I please recommend you to go check that podcast out. I think we had a good conversation with Bill Bender there, or I had a good conversation. I don't have a team over here, but anyways, the fans are part of the conversation too. People listen. Anyways, fantastic conversation there. Well, some more stuff's on that. So ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips was talking to some people, and ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips confirmed that, this comes from On3, that ESPN is pushing to cap any future college football playoff expansion at 16 teams. Phillips revealed that while several conferences are pushing for significantly larger fields, the SEC is not. ESPN has drawn a firm line in the sand to protect the value of its broadcast rights and the regular season. ESPN made it clear that they want to stay at 12 or 14, but no more than 16. ESPN has been pretty clear with us all that they like it to stay at 12, maybe 14, but no higher than 16. And my thought process on that is this, that ESPN is looking at it, okay, because since they are the broadcast partner for the playoff, and that's another conversation. I think the playoffs should be spread out to all the networks that cover. I think ESPN should have a piece of the playoff, Fox, NBC, and CBS. And I think you should rotate the national championship, kind of like what the NFL does with Super Bowl. But anyways, right now ESPN is the broadcast partner for the college football playoff. And with that said, I think they're looking at it like this. Okay, yes, we could do the 2014 playoff. And the ratings would probably be good. Let's be honest. The ratings would probably be good. People will watch it. Especially that time of year, there's really nothing on. A lot of shows are in reruns during December and January before they kind of start up with their second half of their seasons, the scripted television shows. The NBA is going on. Christmas Day is big for them, but outside of that, I mean, of course, you still have the NFL. And then, look, you make the playoff bigger, you're going up against more of the NFL. I think that's part of it, too. I think ESPN is looking at it like, okay, from a TV rating standpoint, where are we going to be with this? If we go to 24 and then we're devaluing the regular season, then the regular season games don't mean as much, and then the regular season TV ratings may not be as big, and then that could hurt ESPN's bottom line financially. I think that's probably where they're looking at that when capping it at 16. And then let's be honest, let's call it what it is. ESPN and the SEC are partners, and Greg Sankey has been adamant he wants to 16. He would go there, but no further than that. But these other conferences want 24. And we talked with Bill Bender earlier in the week. Until the SEC and the Big Ten are able to come to a deal, an agreement, agree on this thing, it's not going anywhere. And that's why we're still at 12. We thought we was going to get to 14 here pretty soon, but I just say we need to run with 12 for a while, at least 10 years, just to see how it looks and kind of figure out the data and what we need to do here before we go to 24. I just think 24 is too much. I thought 12 is too much. It should, if you're going to expand, go to 8. But again, you're not going backwards with this thing. You're not going to go the other direction with playoff teams. You're going to add more if you do anything different with it. So, and we'll see. This is going to be a topic too. Like I talked about the Lane Kiffin thing, SEC Media Days, all the media days this summer. This will be a big topic. So, we'll keep you updated. We'll talk about it as it comes up. And that's going to do it for this episode of the show. Again, thanks, Aaron Nagler. Great conversation. Had a lot of fun. Did not really plan to go 40, but we did that. And I appreciate him being gracious with his time. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordan Sports. You can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you check out podcasts. On YouTube at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Just, hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell for all notifications. Just leave a comment on a video. I'll read those on a future edition as well. And you can email me at phillipjordanmedia@gmail.com. And again, I appreciate you checking out the show. And we'll be back with some more audio content next week right here on the Phillip Jordan Show podcast. With kindness be your compass.